Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to Boxing Unwrapped. It's Boxing Unwrapped, the boxing podcast that comes back from the dead like Lazarus. I'm Ryan.
I'm Andrew.
And welcome to What the F is the Boxing News. I know, guys, we've been a bit sporadic, but what we're going to do is promise we're getting back on track. Andy has been out camping in the Isles, in the wind and rain, enjoying himself.
Arctic conditions, listeners. Arctic conditions. At one point, I thought I was going to have to amputate below the knee.
I thought, when you told me about you were going camping out there in the Western Isles, I thought it's going to be one of those kind of trips where, when you were a kid, you went out there and it was going to be good and your dad was totally going for it. He was like, this is going to be great, blah, blah, blah. And then it starts to rain. And then, by, day or 2 or 3, your mum's, finally convinced him to pay for a hotel.
I'll give you a clue, right? The wind was blowing so strongly that the pool of water on the tent couldn't reach the ground. It was being held sort of vertically against the tent canvas because it was too strong, the wind, to let the water reach the ground. So it was being pushed through the material of the tent like a mesh. It was a hot mess.
No, man, that's insane. Well, Andy, do you want to tell the good people what we've got in store for them this week?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a lot more about my camping trip, I think. So raw. No. On a more serious note, we're going to talk about what the F are the results from last weekend and this weekend, because we're recording at the weekend. We are going to say what the remaining fights for this weekend are. We're going to, of course, look at what the F went wrong last week. We will have a fairly chunky section of random news, and of course, we round off with what grinds my gears and a little bit of Listener Corner.
Fantastic. Well, Andy, let's dive into what the F are the results from last weekend.
Few different things to mention. Where do you want to start? Anything particularly grab your eye?
Oh, just how pointless Golovkin versus Steve Rolls was, to be perfectly honest with you. It was like a weekend of pointless boxing, I think, to be honest, to a point.
Controversial.
I mean, I don't really understand this Golovkin-Steve Rolls fight at all, to be honest. Golovkin went through him so badly, so badly.
It was a bit, it was what it was always going to be, I guess, where, it kind of a few rounds and then, boom, you're knocked out. Mm-hmm. Rolls was there to be dispatched. It was a kind of, just a tick-over fight, wasn't it, really?
Totally.
Under his new trainer, and just, we'll see where he goes next, but I don't know, hopefully the Canelo fight. The Canelo trilogy.
But do you think that the Canelo trilogy is worthwhile? To be honest, I don't want. I think what's more interesting, Canelo, Callum Smith. I think that's the fight that we really want to see, because I actually want to see if Callum Smith can be tested at super middle. Because I don't see it. I don't see it happening. Golovkin, Canelo. What does the third fight tell us, really? Because it would have to be outside of Las Vegas. Because otherwise, if it's not in Las Vegas, everybody's going to be like, oh, well, the Las Vegas judges, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. I think I can understand why Golovkin's super keen, because he feels like he's been robbed twice, which is fair. Yeah. Well, maybe robbed's a bit strong, but certainly unlucky to get a draw and a loss out of those two fights. So... But you're kind of going they've both already fought Jacobs, who's obviously the kind of good, but maybe not just quite as good as those two. Mm-hmm. And it's then kind of who else has he got to fight? There's Andrade. He's fighting in the next little while, the next few weeks. He's fighting, so he'll be fighting, and obviously he's a belt holder, so they could unify against. Canelo could look to unify against him, or Golovkin could look to get a belt back. He's on DAZN as well, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
So maybe he's an option. Obviously, there was BJS, but he's fucked things around and then ended up a super middleweight champion somehow. So.
I know.
Good things come to those who abuse prostitutes and let children drive sports cars. I mean,
fucking mental case.
Should we speak about a friend of the podcast?
Oh, can we just pause for a second? The flower of Scotland. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Anyway,
liked it though.
Back like it. So, yeah, Hannah Rankin doing the business. You know, I think it's great. I mean, fucking hell, to be on TV as well. I think that was a masterstroke of the BBC. Actually, I think it's probably the only time anybody watches that BBC Scotland TV channel.
Yeah, it seems to be. It's quite niche, isn't it? The channel.
They're like, I saw some some results from it, and like there was like a number of programs that had like 0 viewers.
No way.
Yeah, totally.
No way.
Totally.
You should come and speak to us. We know how to get like, you know, some serious numbers in terms of listenership and in comparison to that.
Exactly.
We've never had an unlistened to episode.
Exactly. So there we go. But yeah, I think it's really good. I mean, I wonder. I think what she said actually is that she's happy because this is the first time she's fought for a belt at her like preferred weight. You know, and I think well done to her. Well done to her.
Mm-hmm. She won on all 3 scorecards, 96-94 versus Sarah Curran. Curran started well, but then Rankin kind of overtook her in the middle and late stages of the fight.
Yeah.
And was a deserved, but it was close, but she was a deserved winner. So well done.
Well done. Well done.
Shall we keep the congratulations coming, or do you want to say no for Josh Warrington to Galahad?
Yeah. I mean, this is interesting because, you know, I don't understand what's going on with Josh Warrington. I thought he actually was a much better boxer than this, but I mean, not at all. Not at all.
He struggled. He struggled with Galahad, didn't he?
Yeah, totally.
I found it like compelling without being pretty, if you know what I mean. Like I found it quite intriguing to watch. I think there's a lot of people making a strong case to say that Galahad won the fight. The one thing I would say is that like I think he should have had points deducted because he was spoiling in terms of holding on like so blatantly. Like he kept on like jamming Warrington's gloves under his arms and stuff like that. He kept tying him up, and I think it was like actually holding and grappling to the point at which I think he should have, or he could have potentially been deducted points, and it wouldn't have been like a shock if he was. And on that basis, because he was spoiling so much whenever the fight got up close, I was like, well, maybe you did do a lot and you were unlucky, but at the same time, if your approach was just to do that so consistently because he was so unwilling to stand and like trade up close, then he kind of, it doesn't look great. I mean, I felt when I watched it that like I felt it was probably beyond my like technical capability to score it properly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Because it looks so close to me, so many of the rounds, that it just kind of depends what you like. And I wouldn't say, I can definitively say one or the other. I thought it was really, really difficult to score. And I didn't feel like I had any confidence in doing it, to be honest.
No.
But if you're fighting the champion, it's his home crowd, and you're like so blatantly like spoiling so much of the time, even though you're landing like nice crisp shots at the same time as well, then I don't know. I think it's going to go against you a proportion of the time, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I mean, maybe the judges just thought, like, no, you've spoiled the fight, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. Do you think Warrington will end up fighting Santa Cruz?
I think he's looking for, he's wanting to go to the States and I kind of, some form of unification. I think Santa Cruz is widely regarded as the best in the division, isn't he?
Yeah, totally.
I think he'd probably have a better shot against Oscar Valdez. I think he's the other champion, isn't he?
Yeah.
So maybe have a go at him, maybe. But either or, I think it would be interesting fights and someone that didn't spoil against them. Warrington's engine is that good, and you know he's so aggressive that I think provide an interesting fight. I think he's normally like a good fighter to watch. His other fights were great to watch, you know. So it was like Galahad's tactics that he was determined he was going to spoil up close all the time. So I don't know. Maybe I feel bad for him, but at the same time, it's like kind of, you know, you're taking a big risk fighting that way.
Absolutely. Shall we talk about Bredis versus Glowacki?
I saw this being pronounced because I've always been pronouncing it Glowacki, and I've heard like a few different pronunciations, but some of them are just like Glowacki or Glowacki. This was weird, huh? This was like the strangest sequence of events.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, those of you who haven't seen it, Glowacki like elbowed Bredis like
other way around.
Oh, sorry, Bredis elbowed Glowacki in the head, and like I don't understand how the referee did. I don't think the referee saw it in the same way that we saw it as spectators. Do you know what I mean?
He somehow must have missed it and just assumed it was a punch. Or no, because he didn't start counting, did he? It was really weird. It was like, it also looked like Glowacki went down like really theatrically from it as well. Although clearly it looked like it would have hurt a lot. I mean, Bredis lands the elbow on with force basically on his chin. And then Glowacki kind of like collapses in slow motion. We should say that Glowacki kind of hit Bredis in a clinch, when they were in a clinch, around the back of the head quite forcefully, and that was his, and that's why he did it in response. He lashed out in anger, but the referee didn't see it, or didn't, because he could have easily disqualified him, couldn't he? The fight continued. Bredis knocks Glowacki down. Then the referee doesn't hear the bell, and he gets knocked. They overrun by ages in like 20 seconds over the end of the round. At which point Glowacki gets knocked down again.
Yeah,
and then he's like completely spent, but he comes out at the start of the third, and then he gets knocked down proper.
Yeah, totally.
Just a bizarre sequence.
You know, and here's the really funny thing as well, right? Is that the World Boxing Super Series have said that Bredis had a point deducted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which, to be honest with you, is completely fucking pointless. I think this is just a PR exercise, to be honest with you, because everyone's. I mean, can you get a point deducted after you've won the fight? I mean, it doesn't really matter if you win by knockout.
Well, surely not. They must have meant like the referee deducted. The referee at various points looked like he basically completely lost control.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think if you see that, you have to disqualify him, don't you?
Yeah, totally, 100%. So, if I was Glowacki, I'd actually be quite upset about the whole situation.
I think he's appealing it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
It was a shame, actually, because I mean, it could have been a potentially interesting fight. Why was Bredis wearing flight socks? Out of interest.
I don't know. Maybe this is a thing. Maybe this is a new thing. It's so strange.
But yeah, it was a shame. It was a shame that it kind of, the crowd were loving it, obviously, because it was Bredis' home crowd. It was in Latvia, and they were lapping it up. But pretty heated stuff. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And
so
Dorticos versus Tabiti.
Tabiti.
That's actually like an Indian game. Have you ever seen it? Tabiti. Google it, guys. It's fucking really interesting, actually. It's like tag, but with like button true aggressive. Anyway, back on track. It's pretty. You know what? Like this cruiserweight. Like I always think cruiserweight fights are like they are good value for money. Like, you know. So. Dorticos knocked out Tabiti in round 10 to secure his spot in the final as well. 2 minutes and 33 of round 10. An absolute fucking beating of a knockout. Like, it was real nasty.
Perler of a knockout, yeah.
Yeah.
Tabiti started well and then faded. He was like quick, really fast to start. He looked like he had the faster reactions. Dorticos is just like a grinder, isn't he? But he's like a grinder that can like proper punch.
Yeah.
But he's just like relentless. He's just like storming forward the whole time. Tabiti looked like he just ran out of puff. He's from the Mayweather gym.
Oh, really?
He's quite highly touted up until this point. But he looked like, to me, like he had a little bit of an engine issue. Because he got, maybe it was just the relentless pressure of Dorticos. Maybe Dorticos has got tremendous energy. But he kind of got worn down, and then he just got broken down, and then he got knocked the F out.
Should we have a little chat about Fury versus Swartz? I know. And do you know what upsets me, right? Is like, everyone feels that this like they're like, oh my god, didn't Fury's movement was incredible, blah 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 blah. He was like way bigger than Swartz, so it's actually quite easy for him to move away and not get hit. And it's really easy to look good against someone who's nowhere near as good as you are.
It's like if Ronaldo started doing like football tricks against like a 7-year-old.
Yeah, totally. That's a really good analogy for it, because like Fury is arguably one of the world's best heavyweights.
For sure.
In probably the best movement for a man of his size that you will ever see. And Swartz is nowhere near that. He's not even the best in Germany.
No, he's probably not even the best in his house.
Totally. I mean, he barely threw a punch.
He barely threw a punch. It looked embarrassing, like how out of his depth he was. I mean, I think maybe you could say, oh well, look, you can give him a kind of gimme like Fury if you want after the Wilder fight, but there's gimmies and then there's this. Like, I mean, he had absolutely no right. He would be beaten by British domestic level guys, or whatever, European guys, or there are dozens of fighters.
He's kind of the type of guy that you fight when you're first coming up in your career. Watching this, exactly. It reminded me a little bit of the Sefer Safiri fight.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
It had that kind of similar feel. And again, like Sefer Safiri is like, he's not really even a fucking heavyweight, but that kind of like almost like pantomime feel to it. So
what I was gonna say is, do you remember that guy who was like completely awful that Derek Chisora fought a while ago, and it was like it proper stunk the place out in April. Derek Chisora fought that guy Senad Gashi.
Yeah.
So that guy Gashi, he was beating him. He's a dog awful fighter, and he was beating Tom Schwartz until he got DQ'd. So then Schwartz got the win, last year, like a year ago.
Right, okay.
So, it's just a further indication of kind of like the level that the guy's at. He's just not like a proper boxer.
Yeah.
I think the idea, and then the fact that he was like highly ranked, within one of the bodies. Like, he was the number one ranked. I mean, that's just completely, this is just like, it's just fraudulent almost, like, for that to be the case. Well, put it this way, it's maybe not fraudulent, but it's certainly not based on his boxing ability.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's just hopeless. Anyway, Fury looks great, I thought, but I mean, it would have been like if he was doing work against, like a punching bag, or like a
sparring partner or something. Yeah,
anything like that. Yeah, anything. I mean, the guy had like no movement and no power and no like confidence to try and throw. It was just like, well, he can do what he wants. He can look amazing. He did look good, but. I'm surprised he doesn't look in better shape. He kind of said at the end of the fight, oh, look, I've put on 12 pounds. But I couldn't tell, like, he was saying that as if, like, he was saying it as in, like, he's trying to build. He didn't elaborate on it to say, I've put on 12 pounds to build muscle. It's like, you were always saying about how his legs look so thin.
Yeah.
And they still do.
They still do,
But he looked kind of, like, a bit like chunky, and I don't know. Maybe he'll never change that. But he didn't used to look like that to the same extent. You see him and see his physique for the Klitschko fight, and he's much more trim. So I don't know. But anyway, it looked great, but it was like a training exercise, really. So.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the fights from York Hall. Conor Benn versus UC Kovula. I think maybe that's how you fucking pronounce it. Like, hold me up on it. To be honest, I mean, Conor Benn, does get a little bit rocked at the very start. Maybe this is why he's kind of, he needs this kind of level of experience to build up, to not come out guns blazing. But my God, he does the business. Comes back and then is just fucking second round, just absolutely wrecking this guy. Until the guy's dropped twice and the ref has to step in. So, Conor Benn, definitely exciting to watch. I think it will be interesting to see what happens as he comes up the rank. Yeah, so I think nice, exciting little fight from York Hall. It was the return of Ted Cheeseman when he took on Kieran Conway. We'll remember that Cheeseman actually lost his last fight when he was fighting the European champ Sergio Garcia, and showed the level that he was at when Sergio Garcia put on a fucking boxing lesson and Ted Cheeseman could only walk forward with his face.
So his career is in danger of unraveling, isn't it? I guess a bit.
100%. His opponent actually only came in with 3 weeks' notice. Mm-hmm. So
and he laboured to a draw.
Yeah, he ends up with a draw. So it's not great for Cheeseman. Where does he go from here? Because he's obviously reaching this kind of domestic level and not really being able to step up. I think he maybe needs some time out to work on his actual boxing skills. To be honest. Yeah.
You're harsh but fair, Ryan.
Harsh but fair. Absolutely.
Harsh but fair.
Absolutely. We also had Craig Richards against Andre Sterling. The interesting thing about this at light heavy is that it was a final eliminator for the British title against Joshua Buatsi. Yeah, so it was quite an interesting fight to start out with. Plenty of to and fro. However, Richards breaks through in the 6th, dropping Sterling. But interestingly enough, Sterling still managed to kind of get through and fight through to the latter stages. Mm-hmm. And then Richards ends up getting a unanimous decision. So Eddie Hearn says he's going to try and make Buatsi versus Richards for the autumn.
Interesting.
That's that. So let's move on to what the F are the fights remaining this weekend.
Well, because of when we're recording, obviously we've done the Friday, but not the Sunday night. I think it is. Guillermo Rigondeux is back fighting Seja Menu, who's a decent level opponent. Rigondoux's had one fight back since the rather infamous defeat by Lomachenko, but it was kind of like a gimme, and this is kind of like a higher level fight, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. He is rather advanced in age, if memory serves me, although he was such a long-standing amateur. His professional career is relatively short in terms of number of fights, but I think he's ploughing towards his late 30s, if memory serves me, so it'll be interesting to see how much longer he's planning on going on for.
Well,
and how he looks.
Yeah, and we'll all remember him after his no mass to Lomachenko. So
there's one more. This is totally in the wrong sequence, Ryan. I just remembered. So you can edit it out as you wish. One more that we should mention. Do you remember everyone's favourite boxer / is it road worker or boxer / construction worker, I think. From the States, Andrew Cancio.
Yeah.
So remember, he won despite not being a professional boxer and being like juggling it with a full-time job.
Yeah.
He won a while ago. He beat Alberto Machado and claimed the WB regular superweight title. So the rematch was last night, I believe, and he won again by a third round body punch stoppage after some pretty exciting back and forth. So he won again. So he proves it's no fluke, and I think he may now have to give up the spade.
There's also something really weird happening tonight as well. That
I don't want to hear about your bedroom antics.
Polly Malignaggi is...
That's not tonight, is it?
Yeah, it's tonight. So you'll find it on Premier Sports, which is Sky 412 in the UK. It's 2 a.m. Costs $9.99. And he's fighting Artem Lobov in UFC. So that is what it is.
Is it a boxing match?
No, it's a UFC fight, like MMA.
Honestly,
yeah,
that's going to be embarrassing for him.
Who knows? He made the weight. He looked quite good, so we'll see.
Yeah, but he doesn't know how to fight in an MMA ring. That's the problem.
Yeah,
he's going to get killed. He's going to get killed.
I don't know. Who knows?
Stupid.
Right, so let's move on swiftly to what the F went wrong last week.
Just a couple of things to point out. The Alexander Usyk's manager is Egis Klimas. He's the crazy one. Remember we talked about the crazy manager, but his name escaped me last week. That's who it is. This is probably part for a wider conversation, but like, remember we were saying about, well, really, how many heavyweight boxers particularly get out while they're ahead in terms of how many heavyweight champions have there been who have retired undefeated? One. There's been one in history, Mr. Rocky Marciano, which I said last week, but I thought there must be someone else. But literally, he's the last and only undefeated heavyweight champion.
Did we not do a whole episode on this? We did an episode about who the F were the champions who got out before it was too late.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. We'll refer you to that. You guys should go listen to it if you haven't.
But within the context of the current crop, then I think it's really relevant to say, like, well, obviously Joshua's been beaten. Fury, we talked about the fight that he lost that wasn't given against him because the referee somehow gave it to him when he was like 21, was against the British champion at the time, John McDermott. So he should have lost that fight. Obviously, he was 1 second away from being counted out against Wilder. Wilder should have lost to Fury. Really, he could have lost on points to him, and also he was 10 seconds away from being stopped by Ortiz. The point in all of this is that by the time the dust has settled on all their careers, I'm willing to bet that they'll all have been beaten. Yeah,
absolutely. So, it's not that big of a deal, I don't think, to be honest.
It's going to happen.
It's
just a matter of when. And the only other thing I had was, you said that there was a member of Led Zepplin called Roy, or something like Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't quite find, I think you meant John Paul Jones.
So I did, yeah. Oh, that's really funny. That's really funny.
But that was as close as I could get.
No, I think that's absolutely right. It's not John Paul Jr. It's John Paul Jones. Right, there we go.
And that, I think, are our corrections from last week.
Right, well, let's move on to random news. For some crazy reason, we need to tell you that Kell Brook is not retiring.
In the same way that lots of other people are possibly not retiring.
Yeah.
It would make more sense if we concentrate on telling you when people say they are retiring, but that's not the way it works. Kell Brook's come out saying, for all the Kell Brook fans out there, Kell Brook's not retiring.
It's really weird. Yeah, I've got something to tell you, listeners. I'm not retiring either.
I'm not retiring either.
Oh, really?
I'd like to retire. I feel like I've done my stint.
Exactly. So I've put a shift in, man. What a weird thing. And do you know what's also quite interesting, though, right? Is that, Amir Khan is saying that he might retire. Right?
Yeah. Please.
I don't know. So he's got this fight next month. We've talked about it. Don't really want to talk about it too much for the pearl belt of whatever. Like the pearl necklace belt.
Pearl necklace, yeah.
And he says that if he doesn't perform or feel good when he faces this guy, he'll retire. And I think that is probably sensible, because if you can't beat this fucking guy, Niraj Goyat, then you need to fucking retire, because it means you wouldn't be able to fight like your way out of a paper bag, I think.
You know, I really can't work out why Amir Khan is taking this fight, £7 million. I just can't understand £7 million. It's really confusing as to
£7
why
million?
£7 million, apparently.
I think there's probably a £7 million reason why he's taking it.
Just can't work it out. £7 million.
I know, £7 million.
But, like, you know, if someone said, do you want to do £7 million for something that's, like, very, very straightforward for you to do? Mm-hmm. Like, and there's almost, like, zero risk, or, you know, you're not extending yourself to do it. It's hard to say no to that, isn't it? Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Like, if someone said, do you want to record, like, a really, really simple, like, 20-minute boxing podcast for £7 million, you'd be like, yeah, that's fine.
Of course you would. Of course you would.
Yeah.
So, right. Now let's talk a little bit about Mr. Tony Yoka.
Everyone's favourite French drugs cheat is back next month fighting heavyweight punchbag / ex-gatekeeper Alexander Dimitrenko.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he's back. He got a 1-year suspended punishment for missing drugs tests in the past. Then he, got banned for fucking taking more drugs. So, he is what he is. I don't know. He's back. Do we want to watch him?
He's very reluctant to accommodate drugs tests. Dimitrenko's last 2 fights have been losses to Bryant Jennings and then Andy Ruiz Jr. In which the Ruiz Jr. fight, he looked increasingly like he did not want to be there. Mm-hmm. Like very strongly, like he was not keen on being there. So I'm not expecting great things from him. Apart from, well, I just think it's an easy-ish comeback for Yoka.
Do you know who the original target for this fight was? They originally wanted to put him up against everybody's favourite Hollywood showreel knockout guy, Johan Dupas.
Oh, really? What, Yoka?
Yeah, they wanted to put Yoka up against Dupas, but Dupas said no.
That's interesting.
So
I think he's probably, I don't know, I can't remember the last time he fought, but he's probably a more live opponent than Dimitrenko.
Yeah, right. Other news, it is looking pretty strong for a November rematch for AJ and Ruiz. He's hit out at Fury's opponent, Tom Swartz, saying he's not very good, which I think is probably quite accurate.
I think it's generous. Do you reckon it's likely that the rematch will be in the States? There's a lot of chat about where it's going to be, but
there must be. I would be very surprised if within the contract itself it didn't have something about a UK rematch. I'd be very surprised. I'd be shocked, actually. It just kind of depends, I suppose, on where the bigger money would be. Maybe it would be the States, but I think actually, could you imagine, they would probably do Cardiff for that sort of time of year, because then you could have the roof closed.
Yeah, well, Hearn was talking about Wembley as a potential option, but I don't see how, surely it's too much of a risk weather-wise to have,
cold, man.
November. I mean, I suppose people play football and stuff, but, what if it was, snowing and stuff?
Do you not remember when, was it Windsor Park last year when they had the outdoor fight? It was Fury was fighting. Frampton, on the undercard.
Yeah.
Frampton.
That was in the summer though.
That was in the summer, and it was fucking appalling weather. Do you imagine having to sit in November when it's like icy cold rain in Wembley? Fuck.
Imagine if it's snowing, all the people with the floor seats are gonna literally be covered in snow.
I know, it's too much of a risk. Fuck that.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see that you can do it really.
No.
On that, just because you mentioned Fury, I forgot to mention this before, but apparently for his grand debut in Vegas, the top tier of the arena was like blacked out. The seats were all covered up, i.e. empty.
Really?
Yep.
That's really interesting. Well, I mean, to be honest, like it's a tough gig to like, because it'd be British fans flying over to Vegas. Basically, and I think 2,000 went or something.
Yeah, so I think there was only like 10 or 11,000 fans there, and like you say, there were several thousand Brits went, and but I think the arena can hold like 18,000, 19,000, but it was nowhere near that. So that they had the the classic thing where you put the black curtain or the black cloth over the seats, so it's not so striking on the TV. The banks of empty seats.
Yeah.
So.
It was an ESPN job anyway. It was just for ESPN. That was it.
But I thought worth mentioning.
Glowacki makes a return?
Yeah, he's fighting Chris Arreola. It's like a triple header, triple main event thing on August the 3rd. But we'll see how he gets on. Arreola's all right. He's not great.
No, Well, with that in mind, Andy, do you want to tell me what grinds your gears this week?
You know what really grinds my gears?
There's a couple of things. One of them has been, like, I've had for a couple of days. It's a really small one, so I might mention them both. So, Clarissa Shields is fighting for her third weight division world title against Ivana Habazin. And it's the junior middleweight WBO belt that she's fighting for. So junior middle, if you like, is the same as super welter.
Yeah.
So she's been a champion at middle and at super middle. So the one below that is either, depending on which organisation, how they phrase it, either junior middle or super welter. Right? On the BBC's website, I don't know if it's still there, but certainly for over a week, they talked about how Clarissa Shields is fighting for the WBO super lightweight title. So, not only does this mean that the person who's writing the article knows nothing about boxing, but also that it's not checked and then no one corrects it, and probably that no one reads it and then writes in to say that they need to change it.
Yeah.
So it indicates the level of expertise there is, I think. So I was pretty shocked. It's the sort of thing that maybe it would go up and then it would come down straight away, maybe. But I don't know if it's been corrected now. We could check. Could do a little cheeky check.
Yeah, do a cheeky check.
I'll do a cheeky check while you're doing your grind your gears, and then we'll come back to it.
Right, okay.
But, so I think that's a bit ridiculous. Because I was like, am I missing something here? Like, am I somehow getting confused about this? And I'm like, well, no. It definitely said super lightweight on the website. It's definitely described as WBA talks as junior middle. So junior middle is super welter. It's not super lightweight. Super lightweight is 2 divisions lower down. So crazy. And the other one, just because that was very brief, that I'll just mention, which I read today. Freddie Roach, man, this boy needs to wind his neck in. Freddie Roach is offered to train Anthony Joshua ahead of his rematch, because if he doesn't train him, he's going to get beat. Is basically what he says, in a very nice way, without insulting anyone. He says, "Oh yeah, he'll lose if he doesn't get me to train him." I'm like, what are you talking about? You senile. He's crazy. Freddie Roach needs to like wind his neck in big time. Like, you can't be saying stuff like that.
No, we don't. No, and like the thing is, like, I don't think it was down to training that meant that he lost. I think it was down to like concentration lapses and like
it was some
like
issue.
There's some issue, like there's some issues, like
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, as well, is that the thing that like people were like, oh, it was obviously the same thing was going to happen. Like he'd knocked, for all the talk about how he was in desperate trouble and stuff, he'd knocked Ruiz Jr. down, and it was just like he rushed to try and finish him. But like, if he knocked him out and he hadn't got caught with that punch, then this whole conversation is completely different. If he landed that punch, then it's completely different, chat. So it's just like, what are you talking about? Anyway, we'll see. So that was what wound me up. So on that note, Ryan, would you like to tell me this week what is grinding your gears?
You know what really grinds my gears?
Andy, I'll tell you what's grinding my gears this week, right? And
go on.
What has wound me up more than anything is boxing fans taking far too much away from Tyson Fury's win over Tom Swartz, right? Because, like, it's basically like if Real Madrid played East Fife and won 15-0, or 20-0, 100-0, right? You could take fuck all away from it because they're not even in the same league, if that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I would be amazed if any, even not casual boxing fan had heard of Tom Swartz before the fight was announced.
I think it's it's your proper boxing nerds that would have heard of him before that fight was announced.
Exactly.
Or maybe people that are checking the body's ranking lists and going, oh, I wonder who that guy is. Why is he up there? Is that people? So they're in the fifth, the 95th percentile sort of people, I would say.
Totally.
In terms of boxing interest, yeah.
The whole comeback for Tyson Fury was that, Tom Swartz is ranked 9 by the IBF, right?
Was it not he was ranked number 1 by one of the bodies?
No. He was ranked 9 by the IBF. He's not ranked 1. Yeah,
Kubrat. He was ranked 1 by the WBO or something, 1 or 2 by the WBO.
Right, okay. No? And it's total shit. It's total shit. And, yes, Tyson Fury looked great, and I think that's, that's wonderful, but we have to remember that this was a fight for fucking money. It wasn't a fight for anything else. This was to, make sure that he looked incredible on ESPN for his first fight. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's not because, he was going to get tested at all. If he wanted to be tested, he'd be fighting fucking Dillian Whyte. Mm-hmm. In some sort of eliminator to fight Deontay Wilder or something. It's just... Yeah. It's really frustrating.
I think he was ranked 2 by the WBO.
Right, okay.
Which is it's completely absurd, really.
Yeah, it is absurd. Anyway, that's what ground my gears, man. You ground my gears right up.
It is a shame because, you have to know how ridiculous... You have to know how bad it is. Do you know what I mean? You have to do that, So people go oh, well, he was rubbish, Ruiz was rubbish, but Fury won. It's well, no, it's you're not comparing apples for apples.
Totally.
You're comparing a boxer with someone who can't box.
Yeah, exactly.
It ain't the same. The BBC article is still, it's sort of now hidden in the kind of annals. You can't really find it on the website, but you can do a Google search for it. And I found the article and it still says super lightweight.
Fucking hell.
That Clarissa Shields is fighting for.
Fucking
so it's not been corrected.
It's ridiculous. So that's BBC boxing journalism for you guys. That's why you listen to this podcast.
To get the news like it really is.
Yeah. Or corrected the following week.
Yeah.
Oh. Right, guys. Well, with that in mind, sorry we haven't been as regular. We are going to be much more regular in the next few weeks. We've come up with a bit of a strategy. But I hope this has quenched your appetite for your missing boxing unwrapped. So with that in mind, guys, it's goodbye from me, Ryan.
And goodbye from me, Andrew.